waited much of their life to be there in their 80s and 90s. And I also learned that in 2017 and 2018, more women than men walked Arbaeen. When we reached Imam Hussein Shrine the day before Arbaeen, I stood on a rooftop looking out at a stream of pilgrims arriving in the city, and at my colleagues knelt on the floor weeping in the presence of Imam Hussein's shrine. I felt overwhelmed and confused. How could up to 25 million people walk in peace every year and no one know about it? How could they mourn for Hussein as if he had just died that day? And how could one man unify so many people in one place, and yet so few globally know about it? This is something I continue to reflect on in Iraq as we finish filming, and when I returned back to the UK. I spent 2018 deeply frustrated by the contrast between my experiences and what the British media spouted. 2 weeks before Arbaeen in 2018, I contacted my friend Farzan and I asked if we could walk it again. This time, we were without a documentary film crew. I wasn't sharing a polished film, but rather videos of everyday encounters shot on iPhone with pilgrims and locals as we shared food and tea, experiences and company. While Arbaeen is no doubt a time of deep mourning, there is so much joy to be found too. In the most sensitive and raw of times, we can, as people, be softer than ever, and that is certainly the case for Arbaeen. Social media is a tool that's neglected, but here I'd found a space to show people how I experienced Iraq and how peaceful Islam is. It wasn't enough to tell people, I had to show them, and Instagram became that medium. On the day of Arbaeen, I was presented with a press card and invited alongside multiple local and international journalists, albeit all male, to photograph from the roof of Imam Hussein's shrine. The videos I shared subsequently went viral, which is the reason why I'm standing here today, and with that, a tide of positive and negative feedback. But what these videos confirmed was that positive, non-sensationalized news about human connection could go viral, that there was a want and a need for storytelling from the Middle East and Muslims that wasn't just conflict and terrorism. And yet, when I contacted media outlets, the story was declined because it simply wasn't of interest, our type of story, or in one instance, in response to my pitch of a walk of peace, the editor explained they cover travel and culture, not politics. Instead, I made sure these photographs traveled as far as possible. I included them in a church in Italy, a 3,000-person capacity convention in Israel, Leica galleries in the US, and as of May, in front of the UN and world leaders during the Global Disarmament Conference at Dublin Castle. I didn't stop there. Compelled by the story of Hussein, since 2018, I've documented Muslim communities in the US and UK, Kashmir and Uttar Pradesh in India, Afghanistan, Iran, Kurdistan region of Iraq, and Lebanon to show another reality of life in these countries and the experiences of those who live there. I find it immensely problematic that it required a non-Muslim white woman to bring attention to the world's largest pilgrimage. It exacerbated the privilege that I held, and I realized how much more inclined people were to listen to me than Muslims. There are steps white people can make, and the first is to recognize our privilege. Staying out of politics and not lending our support as allies to Muslims is privilege in action. The color of my skin and religion will likely not make me a target of bigotry, attacks, deportation, or genocide. If your life is not at stake, you'll feel less inclined to engage, and in doing so, you are complicit. From birth, I have been granted privilege, and with that, I will use it responsibly. And to be an ally for Muslims, and indeed any community. Since walking Arbaeen, I have learned how best to use my voice with the support and the advice from Muslim colleagues and friends, many of whom are in this room. I can lend my voice to make a difference while making space for the voices of Muslims. When the men at Heathrow Immigration asked me if I was safe, I told them, very simply, that the very reason they wanted to interview me was the very reason I had gone to Iraq, to show people it's not what they think it is. I opened my laptop and I showed them my photographs. I believe they're being exhibited somewhere in this building. And I showed them these pictures from the pilgrimage. They started to ask me about Shia Islam and what Iraq was like. And in that moment, 3 non-Muslim male police officers